Hey, David Brewster here with New Brewster's Millions of Rants, and this is targeted blues soloing. And this episode is going to attack playing over a 12-bar blues progression head on. And this is very common, especially in blues. But just as a reminder, hundreds of years ago, blues music exploded and eventually spawned other, forms of music. Eventually, country and rock and roll and funk and elements of jazz, are directly influenced by blues. Not to mention rockabilly and surf guitar and R&B and soul and tons of music. So if you have questions about how to approach playing over a 12-bar blues, this episode's totally for you. So before we get started here, I want to share a clip, and this features the late great Irish blues rock guitar legend Gary Moore, and I love Gary for sure. And I found this online last week. It actually came up in my newsfeed on Facebook, and I grabbed it because it's super cool. But keep in mind, this is Gary playing a blues, but he's doing it by himself. There's no rhythm guitar or keys or bass, it's just him. And whoever's filming, I'm guessing maybe they're having some kind of impromptu lesson or something, or maybe he was just jamming and filming it. But the thing to keep in mind here, it's Gary by himself, but you can still hear the changes. He's literally outlining and kind of tap dancing around a blues, and he's doing it with licks and lead. But you can still, and occasionally he hits chords, but you can still hear the chords change, like when he's going from the 1 to the 4 chord or whatever, and he's doing it, melodically with lead. So check this out.
Where that comes from.
So there was the clip with Gary Moore, and Gary was playing a blues in C. And if you're, jamming on some blues with somebody, or maybe you're going to like an open blues night or something, that's usually what they're going to say. Nobody says, let's play a 12-bar blues in C. They just say, let's play a blues in C, or this is, a blues in C. And that basically just means we're going to do, C7 for the 1 chord. Right there, I'm just playing the root, the 5th, and the 3rd. I'm not even playing the 7th, which is B flat. I'm just grabbing the triad right there. Right? So that's functioning for C7. And then we're going to go to the 4 chord, which is F7. I'm just going to grab it right there. And then go back to C7. And then G7 right here. F7, and then C. And I added that last little G, almost like a little turnaround at the end. Right? So right there for my blues, I'm doing C to F, C to G, and then F to C, and then end finally on G. Just kind of a quick hit on that G. And it goes back through that whole thing. So here's, for this example, this is our 12-bar blues right here. So here's a chart showing, basically that C7, F7, and G7. And it's up to you to kind of arrange it, in a progression. You can kind of mix and match those chords in different orders. But this is basically a 12-bar blues, or a blues in C. The next step, we're going to basically start targeting the flat 7. So we're playing a blues in C. So over that one chord, we're going to start targeting the flat 7 of C, and that's B flat, okay? And we're going to basically emulate what my clone looper was looping during the opening jam. So here's what I was jamming over. There's the C, and then F, right there, and then back to C, and then G, and F, and then C, right? And then that little hit of G at the end. So we're actually going to physically start playing that. And what this is going to do is going to force you to start thinking about what you're playing over. Or am I playing over the C chord? Am I playing over the F? Or am I playing over that G? C7, F7, G7. But we're just going to introduce that flat 7 first, like this. Just play this. Right? B flat to C. And then start, vamping on that chord. Do the same thing in F. Right there I grabbed E flat and then F. Go back to C. Now G, do F to G. Just kind of starting to move around in that progression. So that's baby steps. We're just taking little tiny steps into starting to move, through that progression, like that. But it's helping you kind of start thinking of targeting this blues progression and playing something over that chord progression. Okay, next up we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to move the flat 7 to root movement we were playing with before up an octave. So now this is going to put it kind of more in a guitar, solo kind of area. So instead of this, let's move that up an octave. So instead of here, do it right here. Same thing for F7. Grab this E flat and F and up an octave right here. Go back to C. Now it's time for G. Grab that F and G. Grab that G7. And then that E flat to F. And then back to C. And then you can do you want to kind of turn that more into a turnaround right there. Like that. So now you got this. Fleshing this out and starting to do a little bit more and a little bit more, and you'll see what we're going to do with this as we progress. So let's keep going. You can probably guess what we're going to do next. We're going to take this 2-note, flat 7 to root movement and move it up another octave. So over that C7, we're going to grab B flat and C right there. Over the F7, we're going to grab the E flat and F right there, and over the G7, F and G right there. So something like this. That little turnaround we had for the previous idea. You can do it right here, over that G. But instead suddenly that starts sounding like Albert King or somebody, because the single notes we're playing are far removed, in a different octave than the chords we're playing over. So that separation really helps right there. Okay, up next we're going to do the exact same thing, but now we're going to add a lick to the mix. So instead of just playing, flat 7 to roots everywhere, now there's a lick thrown in the middle. And it's basically going to be played over that C7. And it's something like this. So we're starting the exact same way, B flat to C and kind of comp the chord. And then the lick. Right. B flat to C. And then that C, B flat, G, F. And then you're doing E flat to E and grabbing C right there. Right. So we've got... in the mix, and that's definitely going to flesh this out. It actually starts sounding more like a guitar solo instead of some kind of rhythm comping kind of riff. But right there, now go to F and do it the same way we did before, and then play that lick again. Now G, F, play the lick again, and then end on G7. So all the way through it. Okay, up next we're going to shift gears, even though it's directly related to what we're looking at, but now we're going to approach it a different way. And now we're going to basically pinpoint a very famous blues bass line known as a tic-tac line. And typically, like bass and guitar would typically play this together. But this really famous, blues bass line basically outlines all the important notes, for C7, F7, and G7, over each chord. We're also flirting with the sixth, which in the key of C, that's A. But you probably heard this before. It's very famous, like this. Right? There's our C, there's E, and G, and then eventually we hit that flat 7, which is B flat. And like I said, we're also playing with the sixth, that A. So we're grabbing, the 4 chord tones and then that one kind of passing tone, which is the sixth. Right, and then go to F and do the exact same thing, but now it's F, A, C, and eventually that E flat, which is the 7. Also in the key of F, D is the 6th. So we're doing... that's F7. Back to C. And eventually go up to G and G7. And right there you can see we've got G, B, D. Eventually that F, which is the flat 7. And in the key of, G, E is our 6th. So we're doing... and then F. And then back to C. Right there, I'm just going to walk up chromatically into that G7. Like that. So all the way through this is like... Last but not least, we're going to take that, tic-tac blues bass line, move it up an octave, and then kind of rework it to turn it into a melodic, lick like this. So that's over C7 right there, and I'm basically starting with that same idea. Differently right there. Obviously I'm doing the triad here. There I'm grabbing that 6A and I'm sliding into the flat 7, that B flat. Right? And then it goes to F7 and we're doing like that. And then right there go back to that weird bend. And then G. Back to F, and then C, and I'm doing this kind of weird, hammer on pull off, kind of turn around right there. So slowly, Alright, now we're going to take this expanded idea and actually play it over the looped progression that I use for the opening jam. And you should notice like how well it fits or sits in the mix with the chords because it matches perfectly like this. That's going to wrap this episode of Brewster's Millions of Rants with targeted blues soloing. And definitely, this is hard. You have to think about what you're doing. You have to think about what you're playing. And then when the chord changes, you have to change things, according to what chord you're playing. And this is really just one approach. It's kind of the blues approach. And there are thousands of approaches out there. But this can relate easily to rock and country and jazz and metal and prog rock and fusion and all sorts of styles of music. As far as noticing what chord you're playing over, addressing that chord, and then noticing the next chord and kind of addressing that chord. And I think it's good to start simple. That's why I didn't start shredding and tapping and sweeping during this lesson. I didn't want to lose anybody out there. So start simple. Start, flat 7 to root, and maybe you can start grabbing the 5th or the 3rd or something in there, and just slowly, just take a few steps, and then you can start walking. The next thing you know, you can start kind of jogging. Then you can start running and sprinting and shredding, through blues if you want to. But I would go slow, and make melodic statements and phrases and really connect over each chord, as they occur. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to my lessons, and I'll be back before you know with more content and material. Thank you.